Welcome to Book Buzz Reviews and Summaries. Imagine the voice of your past echoing through your life, shaping your choices, your relationships, and your sense of self. It's not just a faint whisper, it's a commanding presence, a script you didn't write but are bound to follow. This is the reality of living with inherited patterns, the deeply rooted behaviors and beliefs passed down from one generation to the next. In Repeat After Me, Claudia Black holds up a mirror to these cycles and offers a bold promise. You can break free. Dr. Claudia Black, a renowned expert in addiction, family systems, and trauma, invites readers on a transformative journey of self-discovery. Her book is a compassionate guide for anyone who feels trapped by their past, those who find themselves repeating harmful patterns despite their best intentions. Through vivid storytelling, powerful insights, and practical tools, Black shows how the unspoken rules and emotional legacies of our families silently dictate our lives. You don't have to live the life they lived, she writes. With these words, Black addresses a truth we often avoid. Our upbringing, while foundational, doesn't have to define our future. The dysfunctional dynamics, unexpressed pain, and unresolved conflicts that shaped our families do not have to be our inheritance. Yet, change requires courage, the courage to examine where we've come from, to challenge ingrained beliefs, and to create a new narrative. Black begins by helping us identify the patterns we've unconsciously absorbed. Why do we react so strongly to criticism? Why do we avoid confrontation, cling to perfectionism, or struggle with intimacy? These behaviors, she explains, often stem from early experiences of shame, neglect, or fear, emotions we internalized before we even knew their names. By connecting these dots, she empowers readers to see that their struggles are not personal failures but learned responses, often born from survival. What makes Repeat After Me particularly compelling is its empathy. Black doesn't just highlight problems. She provides a roadmap to healing. Using relatable examples, she illustrates how small, deliberate changes can lead to profound transformations. She teaches readers to set boundaries, express emotions honestly, and cultivate self-compassion, all vital steps in rewriting the script. But this isn't just a book about personal growth. It's about breaking the cycle for future generations. Black emphasizes that when we choose to heal, we don't just change our lives, we alter the trajectory of those who come after us. You have the power, she asserts, to end the repetition and start something new. If you've ever felt trapped by the weight of your history, if you've ever longed for a way to live differently, Repeat After Me is a lifeline. It's not just a book, it's a call to action, a compassionate companion on the journey to freedom. With Claudia Black as your guide, you'll find the strength to silence the echoes of the past and step boldly into a life of your own making. Part 1. Understanding the Legacy of Dysfunction. The Power of Patterns. Claudia Black begins Repeat After Me by shining a light on the often invisible yet profoundly impactful patterns of behavior that are passed down through generations. She argues that families operate like ecosystems. What happens to one member of a family system ripples through others, leaving lasting impressions on how individuals think, feel, and behave. These patterns can become entrenched, leading to cycles of dysfunction that repeat across generations unless consciously interrupted. From the outset, Black's storytelling draws the reader in. She introduces us to a series of vivid vignettes, stories of individuals grappling with the weight of emotional legacies they barely understand. One poignant story is that of Maria, a woman whose perfectionism and fear of failure stem from her father's harsh criticisms. As Maria strives for success in her career, she unknowingly mirrors her father's rigid expectations, perpetuating a cycle of stress and self-doubt that echoes through her family. These early narratives aren't just anecdotes. They serve as powerful illustrations of how deeply ingrained family legacies are. Black's empathetic tone assures readers that they are not alone, even as she carefully unpacks the roots of their struggles. The question she poses is clear. Are we doomed to repeat the past, or can we rewrite our stories? The role of emotional inheritance. Black introduces the concept of emotional inheritance, a cornerstone of her exploration. Emotional inheritance is the unspoken transmission of beliefs, behaviors, and coping mechanisms from one generation to the next. Unlike genetic inheritance, it is subtle and often unconscious, operating through the dynamics of family life. Children absorb these patterns from their caregivers through observation, interaction, and the emotional climate of their upbringing. In this section, Black emphasizes the duality of emotional inheritance. It can be both a source of strength and a burden. For example, a child raised in a family that values resilience may develop strong coping mechanisms. However, in families where addiction, abuse, or neglect are present, emotional inheritance often manifests as trauma, fear, or unhealthy coping strategies. She provides a chilling example of emotional inheritance through the story of Jake, a recovering alcoholic whose father also struggled with addiction. Jake recounts how his father's drinking shaped his childhood, leaving him with a pervasive sense of shame and an internalized belief that he was unworthy of love. Despite his efforts to break free from his father's shadow, Jake finds himself battling the same demons in adulthood, a testament to the powerful hold of inherited dysfunction. Identifying the patterns. One of Black's strengths lies in her ability to help readers identify the patterns in their own lives. In this section, she introduces a framework for recognizing the signs of emotional inheritance and dysfunctional family dynamics. She encourages readers to reflect on their own experiences, asking questions such as, what beliefs about yourself and the world did you learn from your family? 2. How do you respond to stress, conflict, or disappointment? 3. Are there recurring themes in your relationships or behaviors? These self-inquiry prompts are accompanied by stories of real-life individuals who have begun to uncover their own patterns. For instance, Black shares the journey of Sarah, a young mother who realizes that her tendency to shut down during arguments mirrors her mother's passive-aggressive behavior. Through Sarah's story, Black illustrates how awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle. The author also delves into the role of family rules, both spoken and unspoken, that dictate how members of a family should behave. These rules often serve as the scaffolding for emotional inheritance. Common family rules include 1. Don't talk, suppressing difficult emotions or avoiding conflict. 2. Don't trust, maintaining a guarded stance to protect oneself from hurt. 3. Don't feel, disconnecting from emotions as a way of coping with pain. Black explains how these rules create a legacy of emotional suppression and disconnection that can persist for generations. She emphasizes that while these rules may have once served as protective mechanisms, they ultimately limit personal growth and intimacy. Breaking the cycle. Having established the pervasiveness of dysfunctional patterns, Black shifts her focus to the possibility of change. She reassures readers that breaking the cycle is not only possible, but transformative. The process, however, requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront painful truths. In this section, Black introduces the concept of self-parenting, the practice of nurturing and reparenting oneself to heal from childhood wounds. This involves recognizing the unmet needs of the inner child and providing the care, validation, and support that may have been lacking in the past. To illustrate this, Black shares the story of Michael, a man who grew up in a household defined by chaos and unpredictability. As an adult, Michael struggles with anxiety and a deep fear of abandonment. Through therapy and introspection, he learns to identify the roots of his fears and begins the work of self-parenting. By acknowledging his inner child's pain and offering him self-compassion, Michael starts to dismantle the legacy of dysfunction he inherited from his parents. Part 2. The ripple effect of dysfunction. How family dynamics shape identity. In Part 2 of Repeat After Me, Claudia Black delves deeper into the profound ways family dynamics influence an individual's sense of self. She explains that the family is the first environment where people learn about themselves, relationships, and the world. When dysfunction exists within the family, it often warps these lessons, leaving children with distorted perceptions of their worth and capabilities. Black introduces the concept of family roles, unconscious roles that children often adopt to adapt to their environment. These roles are survival mechanisms, helping children cope with chaotic or unhealthy dynamics, but they can have lasting negative effects if carried into adulthood. Common roles include 1. The hero, the overachiever who strives for perfection to compensate for the family's dysfunction. 2. The scapegoat, the individual who acts out or rebels, often becoming the target of blame within the family. 3. The lost child, the one who withdraws, becoming invisible to avoid conflict or attention. 4. The mascot, the entertainer or joker who uses humor to deflect tension and mask pain. Through vivid case studies, Black illustrates these roles in action. For instance, she introduces David, the eldest of 3 siblings, who assumes the hero role in an effort to shield his younger siblings from their parents' constant arguing. David's achievements and responsibility earn him praise, but as an adult, he struggles with crippling anxiety and a fear of failure, unable to escape the weight of his self-imposed expectations. The invisible rules of dysfunction. Black expands on her earlier discussion of family rules, emphasizing how these unspoken guidelines become the framework for dysfunctional behavior. These rules, often transmitted without words, teach children how to navigate the emotional minefield of their family environment. Some of these rules include 1. Avoid vulnerability. Never show weakness or ask for help. 2. Maintain appearances. Keep family problems hidden from the outside world. 3. Stay loyal to the family. Do not speak out against family members, even when they cause harm. These rules create an environment of emotional suppression and fear, stifling authentic expression and personal growth. Black points out that children raised in such environments often carry these invisible rules into adulthood, where they continue to shape their relationships and behaviors. For example, Olivia, a woman in her 30s, recounts how the rule "don't talk" dominated her childhood, as her family avoided addressing her father's drinking problem. As an adult, Olivia struggles to communicate her needs and boundaries, fearing conflict and rejection. Black emphasizes that recognizing these rules is a critical step toward breaking free from their influence. The impact on relationships. A central theme of Part 2 is how inherited dysfunction affects relationships. Black explains that individuals who grow up in dysfunctional families often carry unresolved emotional wounds into their adult relationships. These wounds manifest in patterns such as 1. People-pleasing, overextending oneself to gain approval or avoid conflict. 2. Fear of intimacy, struggling to trust others or form deep connections. 3. Emotional reactivity, responding to triggers with disproportionate anger, fear, or withdrawal. One particularly striking story is that of Rachel and Mark, a married couple on the brink of divorce. Rachel grew up with an emotionally unavailable mother, leaving her with a deep fear of abandonment. Mark, on the other hand, was raised in a family that avoided conflict at all costs. Their relationship is marked by cycles of misunderstanding, as Rachel's need for reassurance clashes with Mark's tendency to shut down during arguments. Black uses their story to illustrate how unresolved childhood wounds often play out in adult relationships, perpetuating cycles of dysfunction. The role of trauma in the cycle. Black dedicates a significant portion of Part 2 to exploring the role of trauma in perpetuating dysfunction. She explains that trauma can be both direct, e.g., abuse, neglect, and indirect, e.g., witnessing violence or experiencing a chaotic home environment. Regardless of its form, trauma leaves a lasting imprint on the brain and body, shaping how individuals respond to stress, perceive threats, and navigate relationships. She introduces the concept of generational trauma, explaining how unresolved trauma can be passed down through behaviors, beliefs, and even epigenetic changes. For instance, a parent who experienced abandonment as a child may become overly controlling or emotionally distant, inadvertently transmitting their fears to their own children. Black recounts the story of Lisa, whose grandfather survived a war and whose mother grew up in a household dominated by fear and scarcity. Although Lisa was not directly exposed to these experiences, she inherited a pervasive sense of insecurity and hypervigilance. Through therapy, Lisa begins to untangle these inherited fears, learning to differentiate between the trauma of her ancestors and her own reality. Healing begins with awareness. As part 2 progresses, Black shifts her focus from the causes of dysfunction to the beginnings of healing. She emphasizes that awareness is the first and most crucial step. By recognizing the patterns and roles they have inherited, individuals can begin to question their validity and make conscious choices about how to move forward. Black provides readers with practical tools for self-reflection, including journaling prompts, family genograms, and mindfulness exercises. These tools are designed to help individuals uncover the roots of their behaviors and gain clarity about the forces shaping their lives. For example, a journaling prompt might ask readers to reflect on a recurring conflict in their lives and trace its origins back to their childhood. Through this process, individuals can begin to identify the invisible rules and emotional wounds that are driving their actions. The power of self-compassion. A recurring theme in this section is the importance of self-compassion. Black acknowledges that confronting one's past can be painful and that it is common to feel guilt, shame, or anger during this process. She encourages readers to approach themselves with kindness, reminding them that they are not to blame for the dysfunction they inherited. She shares the story of Alex, a man who initially resisted examining his past because he feared it would lead to blaming his parents. Through therapy, Alex learns to hold both compassion for his parents and accountability for his own healing. This shift allows him to let go of resentment and focus on creating a healthier future for himself and his children. Part 3. Breaking the cycle. The turning point. Choosing change. In Part 3 of Repeat After Me, Claudia Black shifts her focus to the transformative process of breaking the cycle of dysfunction. She begins by addressing a critical question: what makes change possible? According to Black, the turning point often arises from a moment of deep clarity, a realization that continuing down the same path is unsustainable. Black emphasizes that while external circumstances, such as a crisis or the influence of a supportive relationship, can spark this clarity, true change must come from within. It requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. She introduces the idea of emotional ownership, explaining that individuals must take responsibility for their feelings and actions without succumbing to blame or self-pity. To illustrate this process, Black shares the story of Sarah, a woman who grew up with a highly critical mother. For years, Sarah struggled with self-doubt and perfectionism, believing she would never be enough. After hitting an emotional low point, Sarah sought therapy and began unpacking the roots of her beliefs. Through this work, she realized that her mother's criticism was a reflection of her mother's own insecurities, not Sarah's worth. This insight allowed Sarah to start separating her identity from her upbringing, taking the first steps towards self-empowerment. Building awareness, the foundation of healing. Awareness remains the cornerstone of breaking the cycle. Black provides readers with practical exercises to deepen their understanding of the patterns shaping their lives. She encourages readers to explore questions like: 1. What are the recurring themes in my relationships? 2. How do I typically respond to conflict or stress? 3. What messages did I internalize about myself, love, and the world? One exercise involves creating a familia origin genogram, a visual map that traces family dynamics, roles, and patterns across generations. This tool helps individuals identify inherited behaviors and beliefs, making it easier to challenge and transform them. For example, Jake, a 40-year-old father, used a genogram to trace his family's history of emotional detachment. He realized that his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all struggled to express affection, a pattern he had unconsciously continued in his own parenting. Armed with this awareness, Jake began making intentional efforts to connect with his children, breaking the cycle of emotional distance. The role of boundaries. Black dedicates a significant portion of this section to the concept of boundaries, which she identifies as a key tool for breaking free from dysfunction. She explains that boundaries are not just about setting limits with others. They're about defining and honoring one's own needs, values, and identity. In dysfunctional families, boundaries are often blurred or non-existent. Children may feel responsible for their parents' emotions, or they may be denied the right to express their own. As a result, they grow up with a distorted sense of what is acceptable or healthy in relationships. Black provides actionable advice for establishing boundaries, including 1. Identifying personal limits, reflecting on what feels comfortable and what doesn't in various situations. 2. Communicating boundaries clearly, using I statements to express needs without blame or defensiveness. 3. Enforcing boundaries consistently, following through with consequences if boundaries are violated. The story of Amanda, a woman who grew up with a controlling father, highlights the transformative power of boundaries. Amanda struggled for years to assert herself, fearing rejection or punishment. With guidance from a therapist, she learned to set small, manageable boundaries, such as declining her father's unsolicited advice. Over time, these small victories built her confidence, enabling her to create healthier relationships. The role of forgiveness. Forgiveness is another central theme of Part 3, but Black approaches it with nuance and sensitivity. She acknowledges that for many, the idea of forgiving those who caused harm can feel impossible or even unjust. However, she reframes forgiveness as a gift one gives oneself, a way to release the emotional burden of resentment and anger. Black distinguishes between forgiveness and reconciliation, emphasizing that the former does not require ongoing contact or approval of the offender's actions. Instead, it involves letting go of the hold that past hurts have on one's present and future. Through the story of Carlos, a man estranged from his abusive mother, Black illustrates this principle. Carlos initially resisted the idea of forgiveness, believing it would excuse his mother's behavior. But through counseling, he realized that forgiveness was not about her. It was about freeing himself from the pain and bitterness that consumed him. This shift allowed Carlos to focus on his own healing and growth, creating new patterns. One of the most empowering aspects of Part 3 is Black's exploration of how individuals can actively create new patterns in their lives. She encourages readers to experiment with behaviors that feel foreign or uncomfortable, but align with their values and goals. For instance, someone who grew up in a family where emotions were suppressed might practice expressing their feelings in safe, supportive environments. Someone who learned to prioritize others at their own expense might practice saying no or asking for help. Black introduces the concept of replacement behaviors, explaining that breaking a cycle is not just about stopping harmful patterns, but also about replacing them with healthier alternatives. She provides actionable strategies such as 1. Developing emotional literacy, learning to identify, name, and process emotions. 2. Practicing self-care, prioritizing physical, emotional, and mental well-being. 3. Building a support system, surrounding oneself with people who encourage growth and authenticity. The story of Tom, a recovering alcoholic, illustrates the power of replacement behaviors. Tom replaced his habitual coping mechanism of drinking with healthier outlets, such as journaling, exercising, and attending support groups. Over time, these new patterns became second nature, helping him build a more stable and fulfilling life. The role of therapy and support. Black emphasizes that breaking the cycle often requires support, whether through therapy, support groups, or trusted relationships. She discusses various therapeutic approaches, including cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, family systems therapy, and trauma-focused therapies like EMDR. Each approach offers unique tools for addressing the roots of dysfunction and building new patterns. She also highlights the value of peer support, such as 12-step programs or community groups. These spaces provide a sense of validation and belonging, reminding individuals that they are not alone in their struggles. In conclusion, a captivating conclusion for Repeat After Me by Claudia Black. In Repeat After Me, Claudia Black masterfully illuminates the cyclical nature of family dynamics and offers a powerful guide for breaking free from patterns that no longer serve us. Her empathetic approach to exploring the legacies of trauma, addiction, and dysfunction is both eye-opening and deeply healing. As the final pages unfold, Black leaves readers not only with a profound understanding of their past, but also with the tools and inspiration to forge a brighter, healthier future. At its heart, this book is about empowerment. Black reminds us that while we cannot change the families we were born into, we have the power to shape the lives we create. She exposes the invisible scripts that dictate our behaviors, showing us how we unconsciously mirror the wounds and coping mechanisms of our parents. Through her compassionate storytelling and evidence-based strategies, she teaches us how to rewrite these scripts, fostering relationships and habits that reflect our values and aspirations instead of our fears. What sets Repeat After Me apart is its dual focus on awareness and action. Black's ability to articulate the deep-seated struggles many of us face is matched only by her clarity in outlining the steps to overcome them. Whether it's learning to set boundaries, developing emotional resilience, or cultivating self-compassion, she offers practical guidance that feels both accessible and transformative. As the book concludes, Black delivers a hopeful and liberating message. Cycles of pain do not define us. They're simply part of our story. By confronting the truths of our upbringing and embracing the uncomfortable yet rewarding journey of healing, we can break free from generational patterns and build lives grounded in authenticity, love, and purpose. The final pages serve as a call to action, urging readers to take ownership of their lives. Black inspires us to look inward with courage, forgive ourselves and others, and commit to the work of change, not only for ourselves, but also for the generations that follow. Her wisdom resonates deeply, reminding us that healing is not a solitary act, but a gift we give to our loved ones, our communities, and the world. In Repeat After Me, Claudia Black has crafted more than a book. She has created a roadmap for transformation. By blending personal stories, clinical insight, and actionable steps, she provides readers with the clarity and confidence to break free from the chains of their past. The journey she offers is challenging, but profoundly rewarding, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the possibility of creating a legacy of hope and healing. As you close this book, the echo of Black's words lingers. The cycles we choose to break today are the foundations of freedom for tomorrow. Your story is still being written, and the power to shape it rests entirely in your hands. Let this moment be the one where the cycle ends and a new chapter begins. Read the book to learn more. If you are liking the series, please subscribe and press the like button. Thank you.